okay. Readers, as my luck would have it, a lot of things happened news-wise during the week that I took off from making videos. Brandon Routh is Superman again, in a production that isn't directed by a piece of shit. Kevin Feige got a hot-ass knock on his door from his next-door neighbor Kathleen Kennedy to produce a Star Wars film. And Joker director Todd Phillips is slowly proving that he's like 5 steps away from being the second coming of Max Landis. You know, without the sexual assault allegations, but is just as worthless with the pretentiousness and shit. And while I love to talk about all of these things, one of the news stories that broke during my absence that's been on everyone's lips is the current status of Spider-Man in the MCU. You see, previously during the drama between Sony and Disney, renegotiations for the deal that they originally struck back in February 2015 started to happen after the release of the latest solo Spidey film and the last film in Phase 3 of the MCU, Spider-Man: Far From Home. The original deal was that while Disney and Marvel would continue to keep the merchandising revenue from Spider-Man because they still owned those rights, they would only get 5% of the first dollar box office gross from solo Spider-Man movies in order to work him into the MCU and keep all of the box office profit from the team-up films that he was in. Which was a pretty fair deal in my opinion, especially since Disney already makes all the money. So, depending on the news sources you've read, or which worldwide conglomerate you decided to side with during the debacle, you either heard that Disney either wanted a 20 to 25% increase in the box office cut from solo Spidey films, or a 45% increase. With the latter being absolutely absurd, because Disney already makes all the fucking money. Because while box office numbers are definitely important, merchandising rights are still an important factor to the overall game that people constantly still underestimate. Like, why do you think Avi Arad is still around the franchise? Anyway, Sony was like, LOL no. No counter deal was made public at the time, and Spider-Man was out of the MCU just in time for San Diego Comic-Con and the D23 Expo. With Sony Pictures' CEO Tony Vinciquerra saying that the door was closed on any discussion of Sony coming to any new agreements with Marvel Studios. Now, at this point in our lives, a lot of us are just used to disappointment, so we assumed him saying the door is closed meant that all possible renegotiations were just off the table and that they were just done talking about it. But apparently what the door is closed actually meant was that they were still talking to Marvel Studios and Disney about working another deal. But as they enter the negotiation room, they close the door right in our faces. Because on September 27th, 2019, it was announced that a new deal was finalized by Sony and Disney that would allow Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige to produce one more solo Spider-Man movie and allow him in one last Marvel team-up film. Now, there were definitely hints across the internet that Sony and Disney were working out this deal during the time we thought it was no longer in discussion between the two companies. There was that Instagram post that Tom posted of him and Robert Downey Jr. playing with the toys of their respective Marvel characters. An Instagram story AMA hosted by Ned Leeds, aka my future husband, Jacob Batalon, saying that Spider-Man breaking away from Marvel wasn't a big deal. And then, of course, there were rumors about talks happening between the two companies after Disney's D23 Expo that revealed Marvel Studios producing Moon Knight, She-Hulk, and Ms. Marvel TV shows for Disney+. But what had those of us that still believed that the talks were happening, even when peeps said that they weren't, was that with the announcement of the new deal, Marvel Studios and Sony already worked a July 26, 2021 release date for the third Spidey solo flick, officially giving MCU's Phase 4 a film slate of 6 theatrically released movies as opposed to the 5 originally revealed during San Diego Comic-Con. So, outside of this new deal consisting of one last solo Spidey movie produced by Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige, and one more appearance of Spidey in a team-up film, what are the terms and conditions of this updated deal? What agreement did these two conglomerates come to now that they couldn't come to previously? And more importantly, what does it say about the companies? Well, while Marvel and Disney are still in possession of the merchandising rights and will continue to make money from whatever toys, games, and whatnot made with Spidey's face, especially those associated with the MCU, one of the key differences between the previous deal and this deal is that Marvel and Disney's box office takeaway from the last installment in the Homecoming trilogy rose from 5% to 25%. And like I said it before, 25% of the box office revenue for the next solo movie was one of the numbers that was originally going around regarding the initial renegotiations after the release of Far From Home. And with Sony initially going on record by saying that they wanted to keep the initial agreement that they had made with Disney in 2015 going forward after Far From Home, with only giving them 5%, it really says a lot about how much Disney was asking for during the first set of renegotiations, whether they originally asked for 25%, or you're like me and believe that Disney just straight up wanted to split the earnings 50-50. And the reasons why I believe they wanted half is because, number one, it's Disney. And number two being the new addition to this updated deal, being that in order to properly earn that 25% box office cut for the new Spidey flick, Disney had to finance 1/4 of the new film's budget. Which, I might add, is a pretty big deal, considering that in the original deal, both Homecoming and Far From Home were 100% completely funded by Sony, and Marvel Studios were just there as a creative consultant. So, considering that Disney was already making 5% of the first dollar box office gross of 2 movies that they didn't have to invest a penny in, while already owning the merchandising rights for said movies, and could put Spider-Man in properties that were housed in Marvel Studios as a result, regardless if they originally asked for 25% or 50% of the box office shares after the release of Far From Home. That's just personally, but considering how Far From Home ended, this was necessary. And while I'm personally sticking to my guns regarding not sticking in the corner of either Disney or Sony, because the former is just LexCorp, and the latter just refuses to take care of its Avia Rod problem, at least this time around, Disney is covering 1/4 of the bill. At this point, I'm neither Team Disney or Team Sony. I'm just Team Spidey, y'all, because he deserves more. But I digress, readers. Your homework assignment for the day. Write in the comments section below how you felt when it was announced that Spider-Man will be returning to the MCU. If you want to help financially support the channel, you can join my Patreon by clicking the card at the end of the video or in the link in the description down below, where you can also find a link to my merchandise store. Or if you prefer to give one-time donations, you can find links to my PayPal and my Ko-fi account in the description box as well. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because I post new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and every other Friday. But until then, this is Readus 101. Class dismissed.